So we are back for another season, and as you can see, not much has changed. It's the same old fantasy football fix. Well, there is one thing different. Hello and welcome to the FPL Fix. I am Richard from the Dipsy Dudes, hoping that second album syndrome doesn't kick in anytime soon. I hope you managers out there have enjoyed a long and relaxing summer, because guess what? It's time to get back to business, because the new season kicks off on August 8th, so we are going to be getting ready for it. We're going to be looking at the players to look out for, some old, some new, the teams to back in the opening couple of weeks we're going to be checking out, and much more. Of course, we'll be talking about how you can be a part of the biggest and most competitive private league run by a Fantasy Premier League themed YouTube show. That's right, it is of course the Dipsy Dudes Divisional Championship. How can you enter? You'll find out later, but before we start, let's talk about an obvious subject: the rules. So a quick recap for you newbies out there. Here on the FPL Fix, we focus on the official Barclays Premier League fantasy football game. Not that ultimate business, because I ain't made of money. You have to pick a squad of 15 players on a budget of £100 million. That's 2 keepers, 5 defenders, 5 midfielders and 3 attackers. You pick a starting 11 with 4 subs. You must have at least 1 goalkeeper each game, and you must have at least 3 defenders. However, more on that in just a little bit. Finally, you pick 1 player to be your captain and another to be your vice captain. Your captain scores will be doubled, and if he doesn't play, your vice captain scores will be doubled instead. There are various ways you can score and lose points. You should be able to see them on the screen currently. Now, this year has seen the biggest change to the rules since they introduced the vice captain. Firstly, the kickoff time has changed. Usually the Saturday kickoff is 11:30. Guess what? Bang, that's out of there. It is now 11:45, so you can squeeze in a little bit of extra team tinkering. But the big buzzword in fantasy football right now is chips. You've got chips, baby. But what does that even mean? It means that they have now brought in 3 new ways for you to enhance your score for a selected game week. You get 3 chips and you can play each during the season only once, and you can only play 1 in the same game week. So what chips have we got? What chips are we dealing with here? Remember when I said you had to play a minimum of 3 defenders every week? Well, this is the exception to the rule. For 1 week only, you can load up on attackers and play a formation of 2-5-3. Remember when I said you had to pick a starting 11 and 4 subs? Well, this is the exception to that rule. Playing this chip allows you to score points for all 15 of your Fantasy Premier League players. For 1 week only, your captain's score will be tripled instead of doubled. Ooh. Is the early versus late wildcard debate finally over? The wildcard is back, and as always, it means that for 1 game week you can make as many transfers as you want without it costing you any points. For the uninitiated, you get 1 free transfer a week, and any additional transfers cost you 4 points each. However, the January wildcard window has now been abolished. Instead, you have 2 wildcards. 1 to play between game week 1 and 18, and the second for after game week 18 and the end of the season. This means we can be a lot more carefree about when we play our wildcards. Now, the question is, when is the best time to play your chips? The general consensus is triple points and bench boost were made for the double game week. Imagine you got Aguero, Hazard or Sanchez playing twice in a game week. You gotta get on that bad boy. You got 4 or 6 teams on a double game week. There's your bench boost for you. Play these smart though. Don't touch those chips until you see a double game week. The right double game week, might I add. Because, Watford and Villa play twice in game week 30. Let's double down on that bitch. That ain't gonna cut it. It might be worth saving those chips for later in the season when the FA Cup starts affecting fixtures. As for all-out attack, that's gotta be a big judgment call for your attackers. Big teams playing little teams and lumping on. Again, maybe one for the double game week, but I think that all-out attack is gonna be the chip that gets played at the most random points in the year. To me, it's a gut check call. It's all about the gut feeling. Okay, so now we know what we're playing, but who are we going to play? Now, I've got to be honest with you, I have struggled with this one all summer long. Originally, I had a 42-player review for this first episode that was nearly 20 pages long. Now, to put some perspective, the Fantasy Football Fix Awards at the end of last season, that was about 9 to 10 pages, so we would have been here for freaking ages talking about pretty much every player under the sun. So, I have decided, and with much difficulty, I have whittled it down to 15-ish. Now, am I saying that this is the squad you should pick because I've gone for 15 players? Hell no! This is simply the 15-ish Fantasy Premier League players for your consideration. So you're looking for a big money player who will be the cornerstone of your team. They will be your captain, the ones you rely on to get you to the top of your leagues. But you can't have them all, so who do you blow your wad over? Well, let's start with last season's top scorer, Eden Hazard. Priced at 11.5 million, which I've got to be honest is cheaper than I thought he would be. I was expecting 12 million minimum. He scored 233 points last season with 14 goals, 10 assists and 42 bonus points. It was his second 200 plus point season and I would be looking for more of the same from him. He is one of those players that if you don't have him, you lose points and you lose ground on everyone else. And with the start that Chelsea have, you've got to get on it because he could have a flyer. The same goes for his teammate Diego Costa at 11 million. He's had a summer off to recover from injuries that slowed him down for the second half of last season. These two could be the power couple of Fantasy Premier League and might be worth having them both with a Chelsea defensive kicker to boot. And at the very least, Costa can be a stopgap for you while you are waiting for the most expensive player in the game to return from his knock, Sergio Aguero. He's 13 million and ain't nobody scored more goals in the league in the past 3 years than him. If you want him, you'll have to find a few bargains for your team to make room for him. But he's just come off his best scoring season for City with 26 goals last year, and the fixtures are in his favour early on. Apart from a home game against Chelsea in game week 2, they play the likes of West Brom, Watford, Palace, West Ham and Newcastle. And if it goes to form, he will score goals if he can shake his fitness worries. Is he worth the gamble for putting in your team from game week 1 because of the injuries? That might be a call you make at about, 11:44 on the first game Saturday, because if he's fit, he scores. But over the other side of Manchester, there's another striker who's looking to improve on last season's performances, that being Wayne Rooney. Will the England captain finally be allowed to play up top again? RVP and Falcao have moved on, and is now the time for Wayne to be the man to lead the attack again and have the likes of Mata, Depay, a superstar attacker to be confirmed by Van Gaal at a later date and company, getting the ball into him and creating chances. Everything going through just to get the ball to him in attacking positions. The opening fixtures are in United's favour, especially from an attacking standpoint, and he's £10.5 million, so it is cheaper as an upfront option than Aguero and Costa, but he doesn't have the track record that those two do. No way. When Wayne has been allowed to go up top, he has scored over 25 goals in those seasons. When he's been asked to do a job, suddenly it's down to the mid to low teens. Simply put, if he is up top and it is the Wayne Rooney show at Old Trafford this season, he could be a must-have asset. But what about the new signings, the fresh faces to the clubs around the Premier League? Who's worth having a tipple on there? Well, one of the big summer signings saw Peter Cech leave Chelsea for Arsenal, and that has seen FPL managers flock to him, as he is currently the most selected keeper in the game, and it is hard to argue against it. Is this the key to Arsenal finally getting good defensive points? Do you double down and go for a Gibbs or Koscielny to boot with Cech? I think it's something to consider, because Cech ticks all the boxes. Look for him to do well and the Arsenal defence to get the points, especially again looking at those early fixtures. Now, a team that have made some interesting signings over the summer can be found in the North East, with Newcastle opening up the chequebook in an attempt to finally win a trophy or qualify for the Champions League, which apparently is the same thing nowadays. Jorginho Wijnaldum, who, like Memphis Depay at Manchester United, is another attacker coming into the league from the title-winning PSV's team, and having scored 14 goals in Holland last year, the pre-season reviews are very positive so far. He's been asked to play in a couple of different attacking roles in those games, most interestingly in an almost number 10 position behind Cisse, and he's been looking like the creative force that they've been looking for, and at 7 million, he could potentially be a bargain of the season contender. Now, he'll have Cisse and fellow new striker Aleksandar Mitrovic to work with up top at Newcastle. Hopefully, maybe by the time this airs, he'll also have a certain QPR and England striker to be playing alongside too. And if that all works together, points are plenty. Now, there is a new player to the league that I am tempted to take a punt on straight away, and that's Andre Ayew at Swansea, another £7 million midfielder who could be this season's Sigurdsson. He got 10 league goals for Marseille last year, and he offers something different in the Swansea attack outside of the big man up top formula that they've used for so many years, dating all the way back to the lower leagues and Jason Scotland. When I heard that he'd signed, my first thought was, how much is he gonna be in FPL? I think he could be a hidden gem. Not many people seem to be talking about him too. People are not picking him yet at the moment. Last time I checked, less than 5% of managers had gone for him. I know they have a tough opening game to the Swans when they go away to Chelsea, but after that, the fixtures get better, and I say get on him early on. Manchester United got Memphis Depay early on, and I was getting questions about him before last season ended. That's how quickly they got this business done. He's just come off a huge season for PSV, having played a huge part in them winning the league by being the top scorer in the division with 22 goals in 30 league games. But as we've seen many times in the past, being big in the Dutch league does not guarantee that you'll be able to cut it in the Premier League. However, the pre-season displays, most notably against Barca, have been promising, and having a full pre-season with his new club is also beneficial. Allows them to work on the formulas, especially him and Rooney hooking up at the moment, working very well. A lot of managers are going to be tempted by him at 8.5 million, and with United starting the season with home games against the likes of Spurs, Newcastle, Sunderland and away trips to Villa, it's the perfect platform for him to hit the ground running. Now, last year on the very first episode of what used to be known as the Fantasy Football Fix and is now the FPL Fix, I talked about Bojan at Stoke, how he was a top prospect and player at Barcelona who'd had a couple of tough seasons with injury and was now looking to make an impact at Stoke, and priced at just 5.5 million, he might be worth a gamble if he finds his form from a few years ago. Okay, well, watch that part of the video again, scroll down, go through the page, find that first episode of the Fantasy Football Fix, just take that section, replace Bojan's name with Afellay, and you get the general idea of that one. Now, we've already talked about a couple of different £7 million midfield options, but at West Ham, they've brought in, over the summer, Payet. And I've got to be honest with you, there could be a shout that he could be challenging Cesc Fabregas for the crown of assist king. If form is anything to go by, it will definitely be a battle of who will be the ultimate assist master. Last year, only Lionel Messi had more assists in all of Europe than him. He can put the ball in the box and he can create chances. Will West Ham's players be able to finish them? That's the question. But the early opening fixtures, again, work okay for West Ham, so might be worth a dabble. Now, chances are, if you're searching for budget players, you'll be casting your eye over the newly promoted teams. But who there is going to tickle your interest? Let's start with a personal favourite of mine and a player I think is capable of big things. That being Nathan Redmond at Norwich. He scored in the playoff final and he brings attacking pace, which is a must in this league. He has played in the FPL before without making a huge impact, but I think that could all change this year. He's 5.5 million and I think you could strongly consider him for a bench spot, much like keeper John Ruddy, who is at 4.5 million, and again a perfect option for your bench, especially looking at those early season Norwich fixtures. They've got a couple of nice fixtures to start with and could be worth getting on defensively on the quiet. I'm not saying huge things, but I'm saying points could be had. Meanwhile, Watford have the most selected player of all the promoted teams, with Troy Deeney, priced at 5.5 million. His scoring record over the last 2 seasons is great, with 45 scored in 86 games, so it's hard not to consider him as your budget striker. Watford have some tricky away games coming up in the early part of the season to Everton and Man City, but they also have some home games against West Brom and Swansea, as well as away trips to Palace and Bournemouth. But if we learned one thing last season, it's that you don't need to be at a top club to be a top striker. The other player to think about for the promoted clubs, Bournemouth's Callum Wilson, who bagged 20 goals last year. He's the same price as Deeney, so might be worth weighing up your options out of these two. Do you go for the proven one at Watford, or do you go for the young upcoming English striker at Bournemouth? Now, we've talked a lot about new faces and new clubs, but what about the old guard? What about the returning players to the league? Who's worth taking a punt on again? Theo Walcott is a player designed by the gods to play Fantasy Premier League, with a fantastic goals and assists record. But it's his injury record that has been the main factor in his performances over the last 2 seasons. He's only played around 1,400 minutes in the last 2 years, but he has managed 10 goals and 6 assists in that time, which is pretty impressive for the short time frame that he has played. Last time he played a full season, mind, he scored 14 goals and also got 13 assists. That's the kind of figures that Hazard and Sanchez were getting last year. If he's fit, he scores, so I'm confident that he can get a good run in the team and show his class once more. It's a gamble that's going to cost you money though. He is 9 million, but personally, I think he's worth the punt. I know there's others that are writing him off, but I ain't. Another next big thing of English football that suffered from injury last year is Ross Barkley. Last year he was going to be a popular pick for managers going into the season until he got injured just before the season was going to start. Now he is fit and looking to recapture the form that took him to the World Cup in 2014. For 6.5 million, he could be a steal for the simple fact that he is such a forgotten man. No one's talking about him. If he finds that pre-World Cup form, he could be a must-have at that price. Though watch out for Everton's opening fixtures. Home to Watford, but then they host Man City, Chelsea and Liverpool in the opening weeks. And they travel to St Mary's and White Hart Lane. So it's going to be a baptism of fire if he's going to find his form straight away. Rounding off our trio of England players who suffered from injury last year and are looking to make a comeback, it's Jay Rodriguez at Southampton. Now, he didn't play a minute of football last season, and he hasn't actually played under his boss there at Southampton, Ronald Koeman. So we don't know whether the manager fancies him or not, but last time he played a full season, he scored 15 goals. I think he should be at least for the watch list, because right now there are too many question marks about where he will play, with Pella and Long being Koeman men. So right now I would say watch list him, because if he can capture some of that form, he might be worth bringing in. Maybe he'll be someone to look at after the January transfer window. Maybe he'll be finding new ground there. Hint, hint. While I'm at Southampton though, I will say one thing. Once again this summer they've lost a couple of players, and the tempting thing to do is to follow those new players, or those old players, to their new clubs. Your Kleins, your things like that. Don't fall for that one. Don't go following the player, go for the replacement. In Southampton's defence, they've got a couple of new faces in there who are worth having. Southampton have got some really good defensive possibilities to get in some good defensive points in those opening couple of weeks. So I say, don't go chasing the player, stay at Southampton and look at their replacement. That's where you're going to find your budget point scorers. Now over on Merseyside, Jordan Henderson could be on the verge of a breakout year. 6 goals and 10 assists last year. Now he is the captain, and this could mean a further push. Again, he's improved year on year since he debuted in FPL, and I can see double-figure goals happening this season, and if all goes well, he could be an awesome player to have at just 7 million. Jack Butland looks like he's going to be given a chance to be the number 1 at Stoke this season, and for 4.5 million, he could be a nice backup option for your team going forward. Stoke are a dependable team, so is Jack Butland going to end up in the dream team for the FPL season? Probably not, but being able to come off your bench and do a job, I would say so. So I'd consider him for a bench place if you fancy spending that little extra 0.5 million if you're not going for someone dirt cheap who's never going to play. Now, one thing to consider when you're picking your team is not only to pick a team for the season, but to pick a team for the here and now. Study the fixtures and follow the form. The top 4 look good for points, but also look at Southampton, Norwich, Leicester and West Brom, whose opening fixtures could see them grab some early season scores. Plus, Pulis knows how to get his defence going, so maybe some bargains can be found in there as well. Down in the comment sections, I've put links to some different sites that have got some really good knowledge, such as FPL Bet, FPL 24/7, Fantasy Football Geek, and the beautiful minds of Potty Morbid and Pathetical Morbid, as well as the FISO forums. I know I have a discussion group on the forum there, but take a look at some of the other forum groups as well. There's some really good discussions being had, so there's plenty of places to find FPL knowledge. I'm not saying I'm an FPL Jesus. There's already one of those on Twitter. I'm just saying, broaden your mind, get as much information as possible and make those informed decisions, because that's going to help you win your private leagues. Speaking of which, the Dipsy Dudes Divisional Championship. That's right. The best goddamn FPL private league associated with a YouTube video series dedicated to Fantasy Premier League is back and better than ever. Last year, Latchford again won the inaugural league, but who will emerge as a contender this year? If you think you've got what it takes to play with the big boys, then join the league now. Like last year, the league will be open to new members up until game week 6. After that, it will be locked, it will be closed, so get involved from the beginning and do not be disappointed. And to all you managers out there, old and new, good luck to you. Good luck to you. Right, that's about it for this game week. Thank you very much for joining us. Remember, if you like what you see, click like, leave us a comment, or hit subscribe to ensure that you get the latest Dipsy Dudes episodes as soon as they are released. We have a social media presence on Facebook and Twitter, and a discussion group at fiso.co.uk. Links in the description. Get involved in the discussion, and your comments will be featured on the show. Whether you make the comments on our social medias, on the discussion groups, we'll mention them all on the show. We'll be back next week with more of the same and a preview of game week 2. So good luck to all you managers out there for the first weekend. It's good to be back, god damn it.